Good evening, everybody, and welcome along. It's been a long time. It's been 8 weeks, but welcome back to the West of Scotland Football League Buildup show. It's a special edition here. We've been trying to get this man on for 6 or 7 weeks, I think, but he's either been very busy business-wise or he's been celebrating, drinking loads of alcohol out that Scottish Junior Cup. But we've managed to get Jack Henderson, co-owner of Johnston Burgh, on the show. Just before we chat to Jack, a shout out to our sponsors, VSN Sport. You know what the guys do. They do lots of bespoke kit and they're nice and local. They're based in Thornley Bank in Glasgow. Gary, your guy who's always at the games. If you're looking for any kit, he is your man. VSN Sport, based in Thornley Bank Industrial Estate. Like I said, bespoke kit, tracksuits, polos, whatever you want. You can call Gary on 0141 883 7612. So on to the show. Like I said, we've got Jack Henderson. We'll say co-owner. I was trying to get Scott on, Jack, but I don't think Scott's the podcast type of guy. Definitely.
No,
I don't think he was fancying that at all.
Jack,
the tail end of May, beginning of June, Johnston Burgh won the Scottish Junior Cup. I know through various social media outlets it was a special one for you, given the family ties to the club. Just how momentous a day was that for not just yourself personally, but for the club as a whole?
Yeah, kind of, for me personally, it was incredible. It was like a lifelong ambition achieved, which is not something that many people get to say that they've done. So yeah, it was more a period of reflection for myself than a period of elation straight away. I think when Laff scored the penalty at the end, it wasn't like a moment of pure joy. It was more a moment of like, okay, yeah, we've actually done it. Yeah. And then afterwards there was the elation and the boozing. But for the town, it was exceptional, right? Like when the bus arrived into Johnston, there must have been another few thousand supporters who weren't at the game, who were just in the town waiting to see the guys in the trophy. And somehow I ended up with the trophy and mobbed by about 1,000 children. So I had to get some of the club officials had to come and save me because I physically couldn't walk. But yeah, no, really momentous day. Obviously, it'd been a long time coming, and I think it was a culmination of a lot of hard work that was put in. People kind of look at us and they say, "Oh, it's financially they've done this. They've just kind of bought their way to the trophy." But what they haven't seen is kind of the work that we've done in the background, the investment we've made in the infrastructure. Like the revenues from the club external of me and Scott have tripled in the last 2 seasons. So, we've put a lot of work in behind the scenes to make the club sustainable. So to see that kind of come to a head and win something so historic as the Junior Cup was, it was awesome. And it was awesome for the town as well.
We'll talk about the money, the finances, infrastructure a little bit later on in the episode. I watched the game. I actually was supposed to be working at it. I got asked to do some behind the scenes stuff. I can't remember why I didn't make it, but I didn't make it anyway, and I watched it on telly. The game for me, I don't know about yourself, Jack, but I thought it was very slow. The pace of the game was really, I don't know, it was like back and forth, and there wasn't really any great chances in the game. And I suppose that came to fruition by the game going to penalties. It looked like it was only ever going to be decided. And of course, in my head, I'm like, yeah, probably Kyle Laffey, it would be the guy that goes up steps and wins it for Johnston. But it's kind of just, it's almost written in the stars, do you think?
Yeah, I think, I had a different perspective of the game because I was quite involved emotionally. So, it definitely didn't seem to be slow for me. But, the thing is with Kyle, he's played at that top level, top level. And, we saw it in the game against Largs in the semi-final where he come on in that game and completely changed it. And the same thing happened against Trenton as well. So, even the moment that he come onto the pitch, the game turned on its head. That's when we began to start creating the chances. I thought we were unlucky to be behind, and I felt that they probably should have had a player sent off in the first half. But the minute he come on, changed the game, the physicality, they were having to bring defenders kind of short to mark him, and that would creating the space from the runners in behind. So, you know, it's not just the fact that technically he's an amazing footballer, it's the presence that he has on the pitch and the fact that he had to it requires a tactical shift from the opponents when he comes on. And then of course, written in the stars that he'd be the guy who scores the winning penalty as well. But completely changed the game when he come on. I thought it was a really, really close game until Laf come on, and then the sending off, and those two moments really turned it in our favour. But I would be lying if I said until the sending off and until Laf come on, I wasn't nervous. I think I had no nails left by the end of the game. So
the Scottish Cup, I love it. Right, the Scottish Junior Cup's been a trophy that I've had my hands on before. I've not won it, but I've managed to get my hands on it before through various outlets, and that it's a beautiful looking trophy. It's a historic trophy, and Alex McDowell, I don't think you'll like me saying this, right? I'm friendly with Alex, and I really like the guy. But people have said that the Scottish Junior Cup's lost a little bit of something since the West of Scotland was enacted, and some of the East teams have came out of it, and why are we inviting Lowland League teams into it? What would you say personally? Because I don't listen, Jack. I actually don't think that personally. I think, you know, you've still got hundreds of clubs competing in that trophy. You've still got to go and win 6 or 7 games. To the people that say that the Scottish Junior Cup isn't what it used to be, what do you say to that?
Well, I would say that we're in the 6th division, right? And I think we took more supporters to that game than was at the SPL playoff final. So I think that kind of says it all, really, about kind of the prestige of the competition. And my opinion on kind of Scottish football from like an ownership perspective is that it really does need to change. And, you know, the old split of the Junior Football Association and the Scottish Football Association and then coming together, but it still really does kind of operate as a closed shop in some way, in the fact that you need that playoff to kind of go through to the SPFL. But, you know, like, I welcome kind of any modernisation of football in Scotland, and I think, you know, you'll begin to see, as if we operated more of a pyramid system like there was in England, you would see clubs like Johnston Burgh and clubs like Pollock, who are well supported teams, you know, rising through the leagues and being more successful. I think that kind of closed shop has allowed a lot of teams to still be in the SPFL, which if it wasn't a closed shop, they wouldn't be there. They don't have the fan base to kind of facilitate that. So any kind of modernisation and restructuring, I'm all for it. So big supporter.
You've segued that really, really well there, because, you know, I want to talk about Johnston Burgh's infrastructure and the finances and what you're doing at the club. But what's really good there is we're just about to enter a West Scotland Football League Premier Division season where there's going to be no relegation from it. There's going to be 8 teams promoted. There's going to be no relegation from the Lowland League. What you and Scott, have you managed to sit down with the management team yet and discuss what the requirements are of that? Bearing in mind, Jack, that I'm a drum chap, all right, so keep it close. So, what's the remit for you guys? I'm assuming, obviously, right, we've briefly spoke off air and through social media channels. The expectancy for Johnston Burgh is to be one of those 8 teams, surely. Yeah.
So floodlights go in August. We faced a long battle with the airport to get planning permission for them. Then the final bits for our licensing, they'll be finished around the end of August as well. So we'll have our license in place, ready to go out to the Lowland League. You know, there's 8 spots up for grabs due to the restructuring. We don't just want to have it just because we finished 8th, the 8th best team with a license. Last season, we had an outside chance of winning the league. At the end of the day, like, the team with the biggest budget and the best supported team won the league, and fair play to them because they had the best team. It was, you know, they had the best product on the park. And but, you know, before the Junior Cup final, we rested a lot of players, we played a lot of kids, and we dropped a lot of points, and that's what kind of ultimately led to us being kind of third. But I think the goal for us next season is to win the league. The squad is in a great place. I think we've got the 2 best midfielders at the level in McShane and Esplin. and we complement them with players such as Diver and people. So I think the squad is in prime position, and I also think that kind of highlights the fact that Trent, who finished fourth in the Lowland League last season, I think for the most part we were the better team against them, and we've improved the squad going ahead into this year. So I'd be lying if I said that the aim wasn't to win the league, but it's part of whether or not we finish first, second, or third. It's kind of it's immaterial, but the goal is to win the league for sure.
Going to go full circle there, because you mentioned that you've got the two best, or you feel that you've got the two best centre mids in the league. So as a coach and somebody who's been involved in amateur football for a long time, I know it's different. I actually feel like Ian McShane and Del Espin are probably, people might dig me up in this, I think they're very, very similar players. Can they too? Maybe it's not. You're maybe not the best person to ask this, but you've got good football knowledge, and football brain, right? So Murday might think differently, right? But I personally don't think they two can play alongside each other and be effective. I might be totally wrong. Is it going to be the case that they two might be fighting for that centre mid place, or to play alongside another two players? Is Murday's remit to have two good players for every position?
Yeah, I wouldn't speculate on what kind of Murdo is going to do. I think we're not the ownership team which ever dictate to the management team what they can and can't do. Like we give Jamie McKim the backing when we was in Division 1. We give Murdo the backing when we was in the Premier League. We've never got involved in terms of who they want to sign. I think Murdo done really well last season. We lost Dorrans, and when you're watching the games, technically he was head and shoulders above every single player in that league. Some of the stuff that man can do with a ball was amazing to watch, and to lose him, because of personal life choices and wanted to go off to America, Murdo had to adapt mid-season. So we have full confidence that he knows what he's doing. He approached us saying that he wanted to sign McShane, so it was a deal that we tried to get done the season before, but we're just happy we got it done now. And while I don't get involved tactically, I know that everything is well thought out with Murdo, so there's a plan in place for sure.
So you mentioned there, Jack, you don't get involved tactically, and obviously when I have been at the Borough, because I'm down there fairly, not just when Drumchapel played them, but I've been down there for various reasons over the years, and for me, especially over the last 2 years, I always bump into Scott, and he talks really passionately about the club, and as much as he maybe doesn't want to come on here and give it big licks or whatever, I always feel that when I go to the Borough, Scott speaks passionately, he's really welcoming. Is that the sort of vibes that the club wants to give off now? Listen, I've been at the Borough when it's been two men in their dug, and I mean that genuinely, Jack. I've been down there hardly, back to when Jamie was there, and that's no slight on Jamie, right? Because I love Jamie to bits. He's a great guy. One, a great gaffer. Two, and a good friend. Three, right? But I've been there, and I've seen Johnston Burgh at its absolute extreme lows, and I've watched the cup final, which is an extreme high. How do you take Johnston Burgh forward now? Where did Johnston Burgh go?
Yeah, so firstly, I mean, Jamie is a top guy. I still speak to him quite often now. But in terms of the club, the first thing we had to do was improve the product on the park, right? So everything kind of cascades down from that. But everything's built with sustainability in mind and a community ethos, and kind of bringing the community in, improving the number of children's teams that they ultimately bring their parents on the weekend, and that's what kind of drives the revenue and increases allows you to invest further into the playing squad. But for us, we're a really well supported team. We've done the analytics on where we sit in terms of Scottish football in terms of average attendance, and I think we would be a top half League One club as things stand, and that's playing in the 6th tier. So we're a very well supported team. But in terms of kind of plans, there's a lot of investment going into the stadium. Over winter, we have to move out of Keighley Park for a lot of games and rent stadiums elsewhere. That's a huge drain to the coffers of the club. we have to pay a lot of money for training facilities. There's another huge drain on the coffers of the club. We put in an application for funding that we unfortunately didn't get. We thought we were going to get this funding, and given the amount of investment that me and Scott have done, not just into the team but into the community club as well, we thought that would be reciprocated. But unfortunately, another club got that funding. So now, we've committed an amount of capital for the season, and we're going to raise some external funds to help finalise the what we want to finish with the stadium. So that's a combination of fan ownership model. So get fans more involved in terms of investing into the club and also having a stake at kind of the board level. And then we've also got some exciting news with some potential big investors also coming in and as part of the journey with us as well. So those funds will be
share that exclusively on this podcast.
Yeah, I can't, unfortunately, cannot say anything more for now. But some foreign owners, not sheikhs that everyone seems to think, and that's to kind of be used. We want to develop the AstroTurf in there. It's not the most popular thing with the supporters. A lot of them we prefer grass, but from a business case perspective, it's really, really important. Then we want to grow the girls teams. We've got a women's team now. We want to grow girls teams at all age groups. We want to continue to expand the community club. These guys, it's so important. Like, everything filters down from the top to the bottom and then the bottom back up to the top. If you have lots of children playing for your community club, they're desperate to come on the weekend. The parents come on the weekend. They buy an iron brew and a pie. There's money that goes back into the club and can be reinvested back into further upgrading the facilities and make it a nice place for people to come and watch. But yeah, the plan is to raise some external funding, bring in another partner to be with me and Scott, allow an element of fan ownership so that these guys can actually be involved in the decisions. It's not going to be 50% or 100% fan ownership, but a small portion, so they can actually have a seat at the board. They can be a representative at the board, and they can know behind the scenes the kind of decisions and why we're making the decisions that we make. Because I feel that's really important. I feel that something that's lost in football is it can be a bit opaque at times. Why are these guys doing this? Why are they doing that? Like even down to when we signed Lafferty, well, why are they spending money on him? And our attendance went from 100 to like in the thousands. So there's a reason why things are done. But yeah, that's kind of like what the longer term plans are for the club.
You mentioned you used the word community quite a lot there, and that funding. Doing a bit of digging, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jack. I think it was Thorn that were awarded that funding.
Thorn were awarded, and best of luck to them. And in terms of the redevelopment, obviously we were really disappointed not to get it. We will apply again next year if needed. But best of luck to those guys in developing out what they want to develop out. At the end of the day, like Johnston and Renfrewshire as a whole, it needs more sporting facilities. It needs more good sporting facilities. It needs places for children to go and play football and just not be on the streets. So whether that's us or whether that's them, it's only a positive thing. So, we can have the personal disappointment that we weren't those that got the funding, but I'm still happy that there's money being spent in the town because it desperately needs it. So
Thorn do the community thing very, very well, and obviously the last 2 seasons our senior team have shown that they've successfully churned out good youth prospects. Now you mentioned there the town of Renfrewshire, so we've got Johnston Burgh, we've got the Thorn, we've got Glenvale. Am I missing anybody else? In my head, you've said there, having facilities for these guys, it can only be a good thing. But as one of the owners of Johnston Burgh, I'm going to imagine that you would want, a lot of these kids to be coming to Johnston Burgh to make the club more sustainable, more financially beneficial. So there has to be a balance, almost as well.
Yeah, correct. So I think we've promoted 3 from the under 20s to the first team this year on contracts. So something that I believe really passionate about. So not many people know this. I used to coach myself. I was the under 18s manager at Brackley Town, who play in the National League. So
Right.
I have a passion for developing youth players.
Yeah.
I wasn't a bad footballer myself. Not no injury stories, just a lack of talent that stopped me actually turning pro. But
My brother's going to be worried about his job now.
no, too busy for that now. But I do miss it. I do miss it when I had to give it up through
Yeah.
work. But no, like I think ultimately, the long-term sustainability is to get these kids into playing for Johnston Burgh instead of Anarthly or instead of Fawn and any kind of the teams that are in the area. And how do we do that? Is we progress up through into the SPFL. You provide a route for first team football for these children, and then you'll get the best players that you possibly can want to come there, because there's a big difference between getting to show your level at in the West of Scotland Premier or the West of Scotland First Division than in League Two or League One, right? Like it's about providing an avenue and a pathway for these children to maybe potentially have a career within football, right?
Yeah.
And if you can present yourself as that option, we have the pathway to the first team. We can evidence players coming through that pathway into the first team. Then when parents select what clubs their children are going to go to, then naturally it should be, well, what club will provide the best
Yeah.
options, and that hopefully that is part of the long term business case for the club is that.
We've we'll go on to the wee feisty bit. We've seen clubs like probably Darvel. I hate using Darvel as a benchmark, right? But
Yeah,
it's probably most recent, right? And we've seen a manager go in and run the club that's got a bit of financial backing. We've seen the chairman come in and who's got several businesses and financially backed the club, and they've went and signed players with the thought process that they're going to go up quite quickly. And I don't know, in their head or their mindset, if they went, no, we'll do it, we'll 100% do it in 2 years. And then obviously the Darvel at the first attempt didn't manage to get into the lower league. You'll know yourself, Jack, you're not a daft guy. You would have seen people go, oh, they're just spending money, they're throwing 500, 600, 700 pound at it, right? People will say what they want to say. And I'm always a fan. I've always said, well, let's put it this way, right? If I won the Euro Millions, it's 100%. Some of it's getting taken. It's 100%. Some of it's getting taken to fall, right? Because that's the team I supported growing up, and that's the team that I would put the money at, right? So no matter what my wife said, I would 100% go and just blow some of it in a football team. Now, whether you do that in a good or a bad way, or play football manager with it, or like yourselves are trying to be sustainable, is there ever a worry for you that you might be another Darvel story, or are you
no,
absolutely 100% in it for
yeah,
as long as you?
yeah. No, look, I mean, we're in it for the long term. My long term plan would be, this for me was like a 5 to 10 year project, build the club up to a sustainable manner, and then hand it back to the community. Like, it was funny when we got involved. People they oh, why are these guys putting money in? It must be some kind of ego play, or they're going to want to take money out the club, all that type of stuff. When in actuality, I spent a large bulk of my children's inheritance purchasing a stadium and signed a 99-year lease over to the club, which means that I'll be long and dead before that stadium ever goes back into private ownership ever again, right? So for us, it's like, it's not we don't just want to invest in the playing squad, and it's about investing into the infrastructure and building the long-term stuff that kind of support a sustainable football club. So if we look at that, it begins with the AstroTurf, the academy, improving the quality of the coaching at the academy. Something that I'm really passionate about is that I want every single coach to, as a minimum, eventually hold a UEFA B badge, to help us develop the best talent that we possibly can. But this isn't like a flash in the pan thing. It isn't like an ego project. It's a case of my papa asked me to get involved in something to help the club, and then, you know, the money that I put in initially to help kind of save the team, I could have wrote that off and just said, right, this is the loss. Here's some money. Here's this check, and that should stable the club. Or it was more a case of, well, why don't we actually try and do something with this? It has so much potential, so much potential. You look and you go into the SPFL proper. We have higher attendances than like Cove Rangers and all these sort of teams, right? Like, we're a very well supported club, and it can be sustainable. And you guys won't get to see the finances that we get, but from last season to this season, we had over a 300% increase in revenues, right? That's all about sustainability. It's this funnel that I talk about where, we're not charging extortionate ticket prices. We're not raising the ticket prices, but we're providing the whole aspect for the community. The community teams, a place to train, they buy food, and all of these things kind of funnel upwards. And that's why we've seen a threefold increase in turnover. Now, as we go up the leagues, prize money increases. Our wage bill shouldn't really have to increase substantially at all. So the actual cost of the product on the park shouldn't increase. But again, the work that the committee do in terms of getting that community involvement will continue to drive those revenues up. And then that's how you build the club sustainably. It's not a very complicated model. It's how much money can you get into the club, and then how much money does it take to run the club, right? And then, me and Scott, we have to spend a little bit of cash on the way to make sure that those two numbers marry up to each other. And that's all it is. It isn't a case of, we just want to sign the flashiest players. And I think you'll see, this season that's not been the case. We had a very clear remit when we signed Dorrans and Lafferty, and that was because we needed the attendances to increase. Like, when we got involved, I think the first game I went to, there was 50 people there, right? So, and I remember as a kid going to watch Johnston Burgh, there being a lot more than 50 people there. So I know that the catchment area in terms of supporters was big enough that it could, but we needed to have a catalyst to kind of bring these people back coming to watch Johnston Burgh. So that was the signing of Lafferty and Dorrans. They look at the signings of Lafferty and Dorrans, for example, right? And they say, why have they done that? This has got to be a vanity project, right? But what they don't understand is that like I said, everything's about increasing attendances. When we got involved, there was like 50 people at the first game that I went to, kind of post ownership. So we sign these guys, and then that increases the attendance, and that increases the people who want to play for the community club in turn, and then that increases the revenue. So everything is really well thought out that we've done. Like, I understand when people look at like a project like Darvel, and I don't know the guys there well enough to say, was this a vanity project or whatever it was, but it's definitely not what we've done, right? We had a clear remit when we first got involved. We needed to increase the attendance. So we spent a bit of money to, acquire two players that were very high profile, which increased that attendance. And then, it was about building a good core of players around them. And everything kind of feeds into building a sustainable club. So higher attendances mean more kids want to come. More kids want to come mean more people attend the game, but you get yourself into a feedback loop, and then that's how you get the club to the level where it needs to be at. And so, everything. Our biggest investments have all been in infrastructure. They haven't even been in the playing squad. The upgrades done to Kearney Park, and we're not allowed to do construction in terms of like the new pitch and stuff over winter, but over the summer, people see again substantial upgrades done to the stadium, and this is about providing warm, dry places for people to come and watch football, which is really important.
Yeah. You do a mean pie. The girls in the pie hut are absolutely
they do, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. So they always look after me when I'm there. Like, kind of get well acquainted.
I've picked a few of them in my time.
I don't want to keep you too long, because, like you say, you're no long off a flight, and the whole sort of reason why I want to speak to you was just to find out kind of what the plan was for Johnston Burgh. You mentioned a few times that you want to get the club into fan ownership, sustainable. When will you be happy when you've done your job, and I think your job is, from an emotional aspect, making your papa happy, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. It's it would be the dumbest financial decision I've ever made in my life. That much is certain. But like, but it's I mean, I made a promise to my papa that I'd save the club, and that's what I want to do. And if I just, let's just say, for instance, I threw £100,000 into the club, and that wouldn't have been even enough to buy the stadium or anything, right? Then what happens? That just gets spent, and the club's back where it was to start with. So, the club needs to have, I talk about it earlier on. We need to get to a point where the revenues match the spending, and then that's when you find the level that the club can operate at. Now, that could either be all the way down in like Division 3 or Division 2, where it kind of fell down to, or with a bit of love and some investment, that could be further up in the leagues and something that the community can be proud of. Like there's this team there. But in terms of when would I think that my job is done, would be, we're in the SPFL. The club is sustainable in terms of revenues and matching outgoings. It doesn't require any external financing at all. Keighley Park to be like one of the best facilities outside of maybe the Championship or the Premiership, and then pass that over to the committee, which are fantastic at the moment, but also put in place some people who maybe understand some of the business drivers and the business cases, and then just allow the club to operate itself without kind of any involvement from me. That would be my 10-year plan. It's not, it's about sustainability. How big can the club go in terms of, it needs to get to a certain size in order to become sustainable. That's just how it is, right? You can make some money trading players at our level. There's not us, but there's some clubs that we know, because we've been outbid on certain players last season. That some clubs spend a lot of money. But if you're in the League One, you can develop players, you can shift them off down into England. There's a variety of different ways that you can drive those revenues. But me and my journey would be, I had the remit that I promised my papa I'd save the club. I've one of two people. If Scott wasn't there, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But one of two people, we saved that club, and now, it's just making sure that revenues match expenditure. There's a strong community club. I really, really care passionately about the fact that the kids' involvement. That's the best bit of everything. It's the highlight of being involved is seeing the children and how happy they are and stuff. So, and then passing that over to a strong committee, a good committee, and people with their kind of hearts in the right place, because a lot of people took advantage of this club in the early 2000s. And, I'm not going to go into some of the drama that was involved when we purchased the stadium, but people think that certain people involved in the club were heroes, and they're by far the complete opposite. They ripped every single penny they could out of the club. And so, it's now putting the pieces back together, the damage that was done over a period of time. But that's when I would consider my job done.
I think I've always been I'm very open and honest in podcasts, and I always try and ask kind of, I suppose, open and closed questions, just so that you can kind of get an answer. What I will say, Jack, is I actually really like the job that you guys are doing. I know it comes with decisions that need to be made, and they might be heartfelt decisions. I think the Jamie one, you obviously said you're close with Jamie. I had Jamie on the day. I had Jamie on the podcast the day after that happened. Now, listen, I probably shouldn't have done that because he was quite emotional. But I understand these decisions, they need to be made. But what I'm kind of cottoning on is I'm actually so impressed with everything that you are doing, and I think the be all and end all is teams will just be jealous. Do you know why that is? Because they want it. They want to be seeing their club signing these players, and I think for me, as you guys are quite clearly doing an awful lot of infrastructure work. I work with the youth, try to get more people in the door, sorting the car park out, sorting the pitch out, sorting the lights out, and actually it comes off really, really well now. So who knows what the future holds in the next 5 years, you know, and hopefully that you do get to the SPFL. Hoping Drumchapel might do it first.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's plans up there as well, and but I think that is now the way it is. You know, you've got ambitious clubs. So I'll touch on Clydebank very quickly before we finish up. Clydebank.
Yep.
What happened with Clydebank last year wasn't just, you know, signings that Moth made, you know, that year. It was a build of 3 or 4 years. Moth's taken 3-4 years to build that squad, and I'm aware they paid an awful lot of money for X, Y, and Z, but X, Y, and Z became an absolute core unit of that team, and they went and won the league by 20 odd points, and it's you know, they're looking decent. They've added to the squad now. They've just announced a link up with St Mirren today as well. So these are all the kind of things that, you know, getting out of the West of Scotland is going to provide. Last thing, you and Scott, what have you said to Murdy? What's the remit? You said win the league, not just
win the league. Yeah, win the league and win the Junior Cup again. Well, is it the Communities Cup? It's called now, right? But
the Communities Cup again. You've got to keep that, haven't you?
Yeah, they're the goals. They're the goals. But yeah, look, I mean, Murdo's he's been fantastic for the club. Like the Jamie thing was the hardest decision that we ever had to make, and
it's because he's a nice guy. And listen, he's
a great manager as well. He's a great manager as well.
He knows his football, you know. He knows his football, but in life decisions just sometimes have to be made. You know what I mean? That's the all and end all.
Yeah, but so Murdy knows his goal is to win the league. You know, but from our perspective, silverware is really nice, but again, it's more about, I always we keep going on about it. That's not the end goal. The end goal is the sustainability of the club, right? So even if we finish second and we go up into the lower leagues, you know, we're still happy because we're getting that promotion one step closer to where we need to be. So whilst, you know, performances on the park are important and they do drive revenue, and you know, we took 3,500, I think it was, to the cup final. You know, that the most important aspect for me is that sustainability. So I want to see increased supporters compared to last season. I want to see that translate into more money spent on food and stuff at the stadium, and then therefore more money in the till, and then that allows us to, when we go into the lower league, to make our products even better. Because, you know, you touched on Clydebank, and that is a team that's been put together over a period of time, and then 1 or 2 additions, and they were fantastic last season. They were fantastic to watch. They stormed the league by far the best team in that league. It wasn't even close. So if I think it kind of from our perspective, you know, we have a really good core of players that have now had time to gel. We had a couple of additions. That's how we kind of build a squad like Clydebank's, for example. But no, the most important aspect for me is kind of continuing that sustainability. The money we've invested in, like the covered seating, there'll be more of that. The floodlights, you know, what I really want to see personally is an increase in attendances over the winter period. That's my major goal for the season, is how can we avoid that kind of seasonal spikes of, you know, thousands.
Bring in some industrial heaters.
Well, that's part of it, right? You know, we have these discussions all the time about how can we keep people dry, how can you know, how can we make it so people still want to come in winter. These are the type of discussions you have. People think that, you know, some of the stuff is laughable, like when they sit there think we're talking about signing F.A. Ambrose, and people would that never happened. But no, that never happened.
Oh, did it not?
That was never.
I genuinely thought that was true, to be fair.
No, that one was not true. That one was not true. Most of them weren't true, to be fair. We did try to sign someone from Celtic, but he said no. But it wasn't Ambrose. But no, for me, it's about, I really care about the sustainability of the club. So how can we increase that attendance figures over winter? That's the kind of big metric that I measure in the success by, because I have zero doubt that Murdo is going to do. He's going to do really well, right? He's a fantastic manager. We have a fantastic team, and we'll be in that top 3, I think, regardless. I want to win the league, but there's other things which are important to me from a sustainability and a business case perspective, and that is attendance is over that winter period. That's how I'm going to measure the success of the season.
Listen, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. You've answered every single question that I wanted to know. I'm really excited for you guys. I know it's as a media guy and somebody that's involved with not just one but two clubs in the background. You know, it's an eye opener for me, because obviously the two clubs that I work with directly are, you know, one's in the Lower League and wanting to do well, and one's in the West of Scotland and wanting to do well. And like I said, I have no doubt that you guys were, you know, were attempting to do good things. Listen, Jack, thanks very much for joining us, mate. I will let you get to your bed.
Yes.
You're in London, yeah?
Yeah, I was on the red eye from New York yesterday. Landed at 6 a.m. Then I was on the 8 a.m. flight to Glasgow.
How'd the other half live it?
Yeah, mate, it's not. People think it's people think it's nice, and it's like, yeah, you spend your whole life in hotels. It's not as nice as people think. So I'm looking forward to getting back to Dubai tomorrow and sleeping in my own bed for the first time in 8 weeks. So
I really appreciate you giving us your time, mate. Hopefully, when are you back over to Glasgow? Have you got anything planned in yet?
Yeah, I'll be over in August. So got tickets for Oasis down in Wembley. So I'm going to go watch them, and then take a trip up to Scotland and watch the Borough. That's the plan. So
can you censor that? I do not get Oasis tickets at all, man. At all. No, listen, mate, absolute pleasure. I'll try and make it. If I'm not at, but I say if I'm not at a game, but I'll no doubt will be. But I'll try and make it over to a Johnston Burgh game out here in August. I'll
let you know when I'm there, mate, and just come as my guest, man. We'd love to have you. So I appreciate your time.
Good man.